Welcome to the All of You podcast. It's Shiv,
And Dave,
and it is officially Mental Health Awareness Month.
it is May 1st. So, Shiv, how's your mental health?
Well, by the sounds of how you asked that, you likely already know. Today was not a great one for me. Yeah, I'm PMSing, so I was just really overwhelmed today and a little all over the place. So it wasn't the greatest day for me, but I wasn't mean to you. And that
You wanted to be.
I
and you
wanted to
were
be,
not.
man,
saw
I
it
had
in your
the
eyes.
rage of 1,000 suns in my body today, but I wasn't mean. And so
That's a win.
That's a big win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being nice is good.
And I did not get codependent and try to rescue you. I just let you be.
Mm-hmm. In
And
my glory of rage and anger at absolutely nothing and the vacuum. The vacuum and I got
you
in
were
a little
mad
bit
at
of
the
a fight
vacuum,
today.
and then you were in bed eating pizza and crying. And
That's
that
how
was a
today
sight
went.
to see.
Yeah.
And I knew to turn around and let you be in your feelings.
Yeah, space was our friend today.
Yeah.
I think also on top of that, it's a little bit of an adjustment with us both being home and working together.
Yeah.
That's
been a big adjustment.
That's been a big adjustment for sure.
Yeah.
Overall, it's going well.
Yeah.
But
Most
then
days go well.
Yeah. I want to check in on you though.
I'm good. I am still fighting fear and anxiety about all this, and but some good things are lining up here and there, and just kind of following one foot after another. I feel like I'm in a maze starting in the beginning, and you don't know, if you kind of just have no idea if you're going the right way or not. And you got to just kind of pivot and turn and go back, and then go a different route for a little bit, and eventually you kind of find your way through it. And so that's how every day feels, every week. And the anxiety of that is big, and I feel it, but I'm, I guess, sticking to the habits that I've figured out over time, and not panicking and letting it be what it is. But overall, I feel great right now. I feel like last night I had a moment and I processed it, and when we went to bed, I was like, kind of stay in this feeling right now, and you honored that, and then I pretty quickly fell asleep, which was a good thing. But so last night I was kind of like that, and today was your day. So
It's so kind of us to take turns losing our minds.
yeah, it's hard when we lose our mind at the same time.
Yeah.
But
it's like a ship with no captain.
Yeah, good way to put it. Just driven and tossed by the sea. So today, I wanted to get into with mental health awareness. I mean, this whole show or podcast is kind of mental health, and tools to help protect mental health, but also sort through the mind and see what's in there. And we were talking about mental health as a whole, and really in the mindset of like, what do we do to protect our mental health, and what are the habits that we rely on, like I was saying. So what's some ways that you tend to do it?
Yeah, I think this is a fun topic because there's lots of habits and practices and ways that we can go into all of them. I think the easiest one to jump into right away is sacred time. Sacred time is when we get up in the morning. The alarm goes off at 5:30. We grab coffee and we sit in bed with our books and we read.
Mm-hmm.
That has been super helpful in like making sure I'm intaking on a daily basis either a book for fun that's like enjoyment for me, or most of the time it's educational, something I'm learning. So I feel like I'm feeding that need of mine and taking time for myself. So that's been really helpful. Um, and then another practice is meditation in the evenings, typically only on weekdays. I think I slack off on the weekends, but in the evenings, not even for a long time, depends on what I've got in the tank, but even just a few minutes of meditating to just get my head in the right space before going to bed, shed the day off, process something if I need to. And I try to be away from my phone after I meditate in the evenings, which is actually pretty early because we put the girls to bed around 8:30 and then we're meditating. We finish up everything probably around 9:15. So after that, I'm like off my phone, which, to be totally honest, with the podcast and the podcast Instagram, that's been a lot harder for me to maintain lately.
Because we're investing so much time and energy into this, it's really hard to not be researching things and always kind of working. I mean, work-life balance used to be working in an office and then coming home at 5 p.m. and now there is no off time where it's in our relationship, it's in our life, and that's what we've asked for, but now we have to set some boundaries with it.
Yeah. I actually think that's probably a conversation we should have on or off mic, is like getting better at setting boundaries with working together now.
For sure.
I've always struggled with boundaries with work. I like always teeter on the side of workaholic, and this is proven to not be any different. And
This is almost worse because
it is almost
it's
worse.
hobby
Yeah.
and
It's like the first time I'm doing work that I'm like loving doing the work, whereas before it was like really just about money for me, and that's just being super frank.
now it's not about money at all.
No, it's really not about money at this point. Probably should make it about that. But it is almost harder to turn it off, but that is actually not healthy.
Yeah.
And not good for me. So boundaries.
Yep.
Actually need to set some of those
For sure.
with this. But actually, I would say, speaking of boundaries is a way that I take care of my mental health. Typically, I do have better boundaries with my phone. At a meal, I never pick up my phone. I don't pick it up first thing in the morning. I always read before I do. Don't use it at night. Like, just try to maintain
Try
those,
not to be on our phone at the dinner table with the girls, or if we're having a meal. Yeah.
Yeah, limit the amount I'm on it. But I think another way that I use boundaries with my phone is, well, there's two. One is I used to have this expectation on myself, and I actually don't know if this falls into a boundary as much as it does just a lowering of expectations. I used to always think if someone texted me, I needed to respond right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I let myself off the hook for that and went,
how's that feel?
So freeing.
Yeah.
Like, who made the rule you have to respond right away?
No idea. I think it wasn't a rule, and it's just become the norm.
Yeah. And I really don't like the feeling that like everyone has access to me at all times, because I need time to have no one wanting something of me.
Yeah.
Or like to be away from my phone. So I just let myself off the hook and went, it's okay if I take a few hours to a day to respond to something.
Yeah.
And I found no one's actually said anything yet. So it sounds like I haven't pissed off anyone. Who knows? If friends and family, let me know if I'm hurting you out there. But I think that's actually been really helpful for me. But the one way I have actually set boundaries is in who I follow. And that actually really impacts my mental health.
You fix your algorithm?
I fix my algorithm. Yeah.
I love it.
And so I put boundaries on the access of what can get to me through social media by doing that.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly helpful. Even like too many influencers with like fashion, where I'm like, oh, I can't keep up with all of this.
Yeah.
I just unfollow it.
Yep.
And that's a really healthy way for me to like just limit who has access to me or what I'm giving myself access to.
Yeah. I remember I did that a little while ago back with the skateboard industry. Like I had this tie to the skate industry from when I was a kid. I haven't skateboarded like actively skateboarded since I was like 14 years old. But I had this like tie to it. And it was like this like admiration and all this. And I really love skateboarding. I love watching skateboard videos and all that. But there was a lot of kind of professional skateboarders or whoever that I'd follow that weren't the most healthy for me mentally. Just nothing against them, but the content that they were putting out wasn't. It was someone I wanted to be when I was like 12 or 13. And it was kind of like this toxic young boy in me that wanted to be this version. And I had to release that. And I remember like not seeing it. It's been really good for me. Like just not seeing that stuff all the time. My feed used to be all skate videos and snowboard videos. Like,
what's your feed like now?
oh, geez. My feed is a lot of writers, like writers, mental health writers, like just a ton of them. Lots of quotes, lots of books, lots of inspirational people that I follow that are talking to the camera about mental health or about their journey in healing. I like listening to people who are talking about their journey, not just telling me how to do my journey. And so I've found those people to be really encouraging to me.
You mean people like us?
I guess so. Yeah. Maybe that's why we're doing this, because I my algorithm I was super inspired by it. Like it's really helped me a ton.
You know, I actually want to just like take a really weird turn onto that topic is the fact that other people are doing what we're doing didn't stop us from doing it. And there was a while where we didn't launch this because we thought other people are already doing it.
Yeah.
So why us? Why would we do it? And so I just want to pause for a second and say if there is anyone listening and they're like, I have something that is on my heart and I'm really passionate about and I want to do it, but there's other people doing it, so I'm not going to. That's just fear, and it's keeping you from doing what you are actually called to do. And I want to tell you that no one will do it the way you do it. And no one has your story and no one has your perspective, whether that's content creation, whether that's art, music, whatever it is you want to bring into the world. It's needed. And I just want to encourage someone else that hears this and that voice might be in their head because it used to be in ours. Just go for it.
Yeah. I mean, they say comparison is the thief of joy. And it's like, I fully feel comparison has robbed me of 37 years of my life not trying things that I wish I would have tried, because I only ever felt safe doing things that weren't super creative. Because when you go full creative, you're doing what you want to do. Like you're not being told what to do. If you're doing what you want to do and it's from your brain, even if you're copying somebody else and you're inspired, like we're inspired by people, so we feel called to do that and then do it a little bit differently, that is like a creative venture because you're creating it, you're doing it. And so whether that's what the company you want to start, like that's creative to build a company, to do, like everything's kind of creative if you're creating something. But when you work for somebody and you just do what they tell you to do, you can kind of hide behind them. And that's easier and safer. And so going out and doing anything where it's like no one told you to do that. You're just doing the thing you think you should have done. I was so scared to do that. And a lot of it because I was like, well, all this stuff's already been done. I don't need to be that. I don't need to do that. And I'm over it now. It's time to just be me and not worry about what everyone else is thinking. It's time to not worry about if I fail too. I'd rather try and fail than have never tried at all. So
that was a fun little tangent. Anyways, circling back, I want to touch back on boundaries. How do you use boundaries to protect your mental health?
it's a defensive action for mental health. So there's offense and defense, and I think of boundaries as the defensive action. Like, I'm going to limit the amount of time I spend on the phone because I'm limiting the intake from Instagram or whatever. And, we can even boundary each other with like, how much time do we spend talking about the podcast, or how much time do we spend talking about whatever, money or the house, or I don't know, you name it.
Boundaries is a dense topic because there's a lot to it. There's spoken boundaries, there's unspoken boundaries. There's boundaries with your intimate partner, there's boundaries with family, friends, like work, and a lot of different ways you can go about putting them in place. When I think of boundaries, what I think of is it's the distance that you and I can safely love each other. Boundaries are not a form of punishment. Boundaries are so that you can have a healthy relationship with someone or something. I have boundaries with my phone so that I can have a healthy relationship with my phone. Boundaries with you so I can have a healthy relationship with you. So I think boundaries have a tabooness to them where they're seen as a negative thing. But ultimately, the goal should always be to put boundaries in place so that you can have a healthy relationship. Like, I think a really kind of silly example of that is we've put a boundary in place with each other in the mornings when we read. And this is like so ridiculous, but one of us will get really excited about what we're reading, and then we'll want to read it to the other person.
One of us, meaning me.
You get really excited about what you're reading, and then you want to read it to me, but I'm in the middle of reading my book, and then I get super annoyed because I'm like, cool, bro. Like, I'm in the middle of something else. Like, this is my sacred time. And so we actually came up with a code word of sacred time. And so if you go to read me something, I just politely say to you, hey, babe, it's sacred time. And that is like my really nice way of saying, like, don't freaking read to me right now. I'm reading my own book. Like, get out of here. But you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Yep. Like, you need this time. Cool. I won't read to you. Yes. Sometimes I enjoy when you read to me, but sometimes I'm like, nope, this is my time. But I think that's like a funny boundary and safe boundary we've put in place where like I get my needs met in the ways I need.
I've been kind of playing with the idea of like, people are risky because it's a risk to invest in relationships and then they move away, or it's always a risk to invest in relationships. So, but we need community because we are people and we need each other. And so we're meant for a connection. So, to be able to risk out to have that community is great, and it's worth it. But the boundary helps us stay safe if we want that relationship, but there is a part of it that isn't good for us. But I think there's something also that's important to notate is that something that I was not really clear about when I was younger. I don't think, you grow up and you just don't ever picture people in your life not being in your life. Like, it's really hard to fathom that. Like, we're creatures of habit. So we want to be around the people that we love, and we have this expectation growing up that these people in our life are always going to be there. And when we become adults, there's a choice that's made to interact and then a choice to hang out with people. So at some point, it kind of was broken down to me by a mentor that's like, you don't just get access with people. if you're treating them well, then they're going to give you time if you're loving them well. But depending on how you treat people is the access you get. I had this assumption, like we're friends from junior high, and so we're always going to be in each other's lives, and this is just great, and why would we ever not be? But if you realize that the impacts of the relationship are negative, you might actually distance and create distance. And so being accountable to that has been important for me. And I think that not everybody has that philosophy. A lot of people, I think, have the philosophy like, well, why wouldn't people want to hang out with me? Why wouldn't people want to be around me? I'm awesome. Unless you've not been awesome for a time. Like I've not been awesome for a time in my life. And in not being awesome, I kind of pushed people away maybe. And so you realize the consequence of that. And that was actually good for me to realize like, oh, I'm struggling so bad that I might be actually pulling people down if they were to, be around me when I'm really struggling so bad. So I don't know, just this philosophy of like, we don't have innate access to each other as a society. Like not every human has the rights to you. And knowing that is powerful, but also knowing that on the other side that people could boundary you allows you to take accountability for how you're impacting others. And so it just makes you think a lot more about your relationship dynamics. And I don't know, I think that's important because that's like the severe level of boundary is like no relationship. And so, if somebody's just negatively impacting you a little bit, you can set a boundary to avoid those negative impacts. Or you can have a silent boundary if it's not that bad. Or maybe you don't need a boundary at all. I think we operate in this philosophy that we have access to everyone, and then we treat people however we want, and we're not accountable for how we affect them.
Yeah. I actually have a semi-weird take on this, and that's if I am treating anyone in my life in a way that's hurting them, I want them to put a boundary on me.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to negatively impact anyone.
And you want to know.
And I do. I want to know if I'm doing something that is hurtful or harmful. I genuinely do want to know, even if it's painful. And it is painful. I have had one person verbally tell me they're putting a boundary on me, other than you. And it was painful at first, but then I went, okay, like I got to dig into what I'm doing. And it's you can see it as a way to be offended or an opportunity for growth. And I took it as an opportunity for growth and went, if this person who I love is telling me that I'm doing something that is hurting them, they wouldn't tell me that because it's hard for them to tell me that. It wasn't easy. They wouldn't do it unless there was really a good reason for it. And then I got introspective about it and went, okay, what can I do differently so that they don't have to put a boundary on me? And that helped me to be better, to grow, to treat others better. So you can see it as a punishment. You can see it as an opportunity.
But here's where it gets tricky is because like if people, if I put a boundary on you, it can also be an attempt to control you. It can be a manipulation too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm gonna boundary you in this way because I know it's gonna hurt you, so that you do this, and that it can't be an attempt to control.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very hard to recognize, and you have to. That's where the access thing comes in, because if everybody's operating under the assumption that we don't have the rights to each other, I don't have the rights to anyone.
Well, I don't think most people operate under that assumption.
Yeah, which I believe that we need to. And maybe I'm wrong. This might be a super controversial topic, but I believe that we need to operate under the rights that we do not have access unlimited access to anyone. I don't have unlimited access to anyone. I don't have the rights to access everyone. If people don't want to talk to me, they don't have to. And knowing that keeps me accountable. It keeps me in the understanding that if I don't love people and treat people well, I could be isolated and alone. And that's good for me. That is healthy. Like I mean, you don't want to be around people that just cut you off left and right and don't give you chances. And it's not like there's no forgiveness. It's not like there's no redemption path. But it keeps me accountable. It is actually what's good for me. And I think if we operate under that assumption that we don't have free access to everyone, then we will listen to their boundaries and we will understand that we could be boundaried. Let's play the reverse side out. If we operate under the assumption that we have unlimited access, then when you try to boundary me, I'm offended by your boundary. And now I'm blaming you for you boundary me, so it hurts me. And now I'm blaming you that you boundaried me.
That is, you literally just defined manipulation.
Yeah.
That's the definition of manipulation.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you hurt me because you put a boundary in place, so now you're in the wrong. And they want you to believe you're in the wrong for putting a boundary. That's trying to manipulate someone.
Yeah. It also gets even more tricky because the original boundary, and we're going to lose people, but the original boundary has to be removing myself, the consequence. So the boundary has to have a consequence. And that's
a really, really important part. We probably should have said top of the topic
of
boundaries is all boundaries should have a consequence.
Yeah. So
or else you can't enforce the boundary.
Yeah. So let's say in the beginning of our relationship, if I was getting triggered and it was affecting you and you boundaried me and you're like, hey, I can't see you tonight. And then it's just been too much for me. I need a break. I need a night off of your triggers. And you would remove yourself. So that's the consequence. And that's healthy.
I think like a more simple way of saying that is like my boundary would be if you get triggered and react in a way that is hurtful to me, then I need a night off to myself.
Yep.
Would be the boundary.
So if the original boundary, it has a consequence and it's done in the right way, then it's removing myself is the consequence. It's always removing myself. It can't be the boundary is now you have to do this or it can't be a punishment or a control aspect. It's like I'm going to remove myself from the relationship. I'm going to emotionally distance myself because just like everything, we're protecting our mental health from the negative. So the way to become more mentally healthy is to have more positive, uplifting messages and sunlight in our life, more light than darkness. And if something is impacting us negatively and we're aware of it, then we have to filter that out and limit the access. And if you are negatively impacting me, but I'm saying that my consequence isn't going to be for me to remove myself. It's going to be for you to go do something or you to it doesn't work that way. Because the whole point is prioritize my own mental health. It's not to get you to do something. That's codependence. I'm not okay if you're not okay now. So you're dark. So now you have to go get light for me to be okay. No, you're dark. You don't have access to me and my light still needs to shine. That's
this
it.
Little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially it. Mental health is protecting your light and how you're feeling inside, your emotional health. And so if you're being negatively impacted because you're being waterboarded all the time by someone who's dumping on you their work drama or their whatever. I mean, I've had shoulder pain for a little while now, and like if I'm dumping that on you, you could easily be like, hey, I gotta get a break from you whining about your shoulder, and that would be okay. And so a healthy relationship allows for that. A healthy relationship goes, I don't want to negatively impact you. So if I am, please let me know, so that way, and I support you boundarying me. I'd rather you boundary me and keep yourself safe than you go down with the ship with me, you know? Because I love you. And so I can ask for support, but I don't want to drown us.
Yeah, I hope there is a day where more people see it from that perspective, because I think that is a really healthy perspective. Most people see boundaries as punishment.
And mean and cruel, and they take it personal. And it's just not personal at all, unless it's to control.
It's hard. I will say it's hard to not take it personal, because me as a person, I am doing something that is hurting another person. Therefore, it's hard. It is hard to separate it and not take it personally. So I can understand why someone would. I took it personal when someone put boundaries on me and was like, at first, because it is something I'm doing. But if you can take it personal enough to go, okay, what about me is doing this? Can I stop this? And also, I think it's fair to question if what you're doing is truly right or wrong. You know, if the person has reason to be putting these boundaries on you or not. Like, it's okay to.
Well, let me give you a scenario. Let's say that you're in high school and you're playing music and you're playing guitar and you're singing and you're aspiring to be a musician. And then you have a best friend that's also playing music, and you are in a band together and you're trying to aspire to be musicians. And then it doesn't work out. The band doesn't keep going. And then you're in, college age or whatever, and your best friend gets successful at playing music, and you've always wanted to do that too, but they get found, discovered, and then they get more popular and more popular and more popular, and you have a hard time with that. I would say it's okay to boundary and to limit. If you're struggling with jealousy and you can't handle being at every concert of theirs, you got to you have to live your life and validate your jealousy and go work on that. And that's sad, because you could be a supportive friend and help your friend become more successful. And then maybe they might help you become successful, because that's abundance mentality. But if you need a time to cocoon and not go to every one of their concerts, and don't just people please and be a supportive friend, do what you need to be healthy. Would you disagree with that?
Yeah.
You do?
That's a hard one for me. And truthfully, it could be because I have a core belief that, like, I just support whatever my friends do almost
at the cost of you.
I will honestly tell you, I've never had a friend do something, even something I've wanted to do, and felt jealous about it. I know that sounds weird, but
that's great for you. I love that for you. That's not everyone, though. Some people have jealousy.
But wouldn't it be better to heal the jealousy than it would be to put a boundary on someone? Like,
yes, but that is like this. That's like, say I was failing in this relationship and I wasn't good enough. And you're like, just heal, just get good enough. And I can't. I'm not good enough. Like it's going to take me time to level up and work through that healing. So if just because you're friends in junior high and you were in a band together doesn't mean you can be friends for life and support each other in all your ventures. And so I just think that, like, if somebody needs to heal, they need to do what they need to do to heal. They can come back 5 or 10 years later and contact that friend and go, hey, I'm sorry. You don't think I wish I could have been there at every concert of yours and been rooting for you? I had to deal with the jealousy of my heart, and it took me time. I would encourage that person if that's like if somebody's struggling in that way, because I have struggled in that way. I've struggled with jealousy. And so if a friend of mine found success in a way that I desired that success, I would be jealous. But I had to deal with that. And I had to go work on that. I couldn't just be better than I was. I had to go heal my heart from the pain and the feelings that I wasn't enough, because I thought that them being successful meant I wasn't good enough. And that hurt me. But that wasn't the reality. But I had to go heal. So my point is that everyone needs to take care of them.
I hear what you're saying. I could probably be a little bit more, I could learn to be more empathetic in that area. I think because I have a really strong core belief of like, if anyone in my life is doing something, feel like called to support them, like it's the right thing to do and I gotta do it. But not everyone's like that. So
you come from an amazing family with a ton of gifted people, and you have supported them, and you have...
Yeah, but no one's jealous of each other. So I don't understand that.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. You got that example where everyone loves and supports each other with abundance mentality, and your dad is one of the most supportive humans of all time as well, and your mom. Like, you have a massive support system, and they don't have jealousy. They truly want success for everyone in your family that I have met. Truly seems to want the success of everyone else, and they really do root for each other. They really, like, with a pure and honest heart, like, want everyone else to be even more successful than they are. They don't. It's not a comparison game. Not everybody has that. Not everybody grows up in a family like that, and not everybody has, just like you have struggles that are different than my struggles. Like, that's just the reality,
yeah, I guess, yeah, that's fair. And I could try to be more understanding and empathetic to that. That's probably an area I could work on.
The whole point is, like, if somebody is struggling, they have to validate their struggle.
You're right.
And they have to go through a healing process, and whatever they need to do to get there, they need to do. And that's why we can't feel like we have these rights to people, because they need to go look out for themselves.
That's fair. Like, I shouldn't expect that I have the right that people in my life support us, because it's their choice. And maybe this does hurt them that we're doing this.
100%.
So yeah, I guess that checks out. Yeah.
There are things that we're going to say that might hurt people. And I would never want that to be the case. But I can't control that. Like, it's not purposefully hurting anyone. But if they take it or perceive it as hurtful, I don't have control of that. And I don't know people's hearts. And so they need to do what they need to. If somebody stops listening to us because we triggered them in a way, then they need to stop listening to us so they can heal. I want to be supporting their healing, not hurting it.
Okay. You're right.
Live therapy session.
This is actually what our conversations are like.
I mean, for both of us, though, because we help each other through those things, and boundaries are really hard. It's sticky. Relationships are sticky, and there's a lot of expectations. But as we learned, through a lot of the books that we've read, zero expectations is better in relationship. Like, anything I get from anyone is a cherry on top. I need to give myself the meal. And anything I get from anyone else is I'm blessed by, because I don't have a right to them. They're not part of me. I wasn't born here with a certificate of occupancy to your life.
Mm.
And that helps with gratitude. It helps your mental health. It really does. It's so backwards. Like, you think you need to get something from people for you to be healthier, but really you need to let go of everyone else. And then anything they give you, you have gratitude, gratitude is the key to mental health, kind of.
I love that. And I fully agree. The lower your expectations are, everything feels like the cherry on top. And it's easier to be grateful when you don't expect.
Yeah.
And it frees everyone in your life when you can lower the expectations.
Yeah, like think of the classic examples of like supporting a friend. Like you're moving and you have a bunch of friends that you relying to help you move, but you let them know 3 weeks before and they all have plans. You gonna get mad about it? You're like, well, I helped you move last year. Well, yeah, but I have plans. Like I can't just drop my plans to help you move if I had the availability. And just because you help me move doesn't mean I can help you move. What if I'm going through an injury or sick or like you just can't expect it in the love in the exact form that you give it. Well, and then you have the aspect of guilt trips.
Oof. I think if someone's guilt tripping you, that's time to put boundaries in place. Guilt trips feel abusive to me.
They are.
Really? Would you put them in that category?
Yeah, because like I think of there's a spectrum of how we connect with each other and relate to each other. Society has determined that physical abuse is really the only abuse, and then now we're awakening to no, there's emotional abuse and verbal abuses, and all these other forms of abuse, and so manipulation is abusive, and guilt trip.
Guilt trip is definitely a form of manipulation.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're playing on somebody's emotions to make them feel a certain way so that they do the thing that you want them to do.
Oh, it's so gross.
It is, but it's because if I want my needs met, if I want to eat somewhere and you want to eat somewhere else, and I'm selfish and I want to get my way, I can start telling you negative things about the place you want to eat or something to, we can steer each other.
Well, truthfully, we all can be manipulative and have been. You think of like kids trying to get their needs and desires met, and they find little ways to manipulate you. Like we
of course
all
they do to get
it.
extra scoop of ice cream or whatever. We start that way.
Yeah.
We want what we want. We're born kind of selfish in that way. We have to learn how to connect and behave. And so, knowing that once I knew I could manipulate other people, that's when I could stop manipulating people, because I knew that when I was in denial that I could, I just would let myself do whatever I want, like a kid. I'm just going to try to get the extra scoop of ice cream if I can get it. Once I realized that is manipulation and I can be manipulative, then I can go, oh, I don't want that as a part of my character. I don't subscribe to that behavior, and I can act differently. And so I don't want to steer you on where to eat. I don't want to steer you on what to do. I want to ask you what you want to do. I want to know you. And I want to know you as an individual human that I can connect with, not and have a relationship with, but not a part of me or something not a game we're playing. But that's the tricky part, like awakening to that mindset of like, I don't want to be manipulative is a big part of it.
Yeah. One, I did want to add in there was a huge thing that has been helpful for my mental health. Really hard to start. This is actually the hardest thing for me to implement was saying no. I really struggled overbooking my calendar to the point where I was burnt out and exhausted, saying yes to everyone because I didn't want to let other people down and I didn't want to hurt people's feelings and I didn't want them to feel they weren't important to me. So I said yes to everything everyone ever invited me to. And that was terrible for my mental health.
Yeah.
I was always exhausted, depleted, unable to get my needs met. So learning to say no, and most of the time people are really understanding when you say no and are kind about it. but learning to say no in order to protect my own peace and the peace of our family. Like if I am burning myself out, saying yes to everyone outside of our home's needs, and then I'm depleted for those who are in my home, I'm actually letting down myself and the people that are counting on me most. So, huge, like that's been one of the biggest tools for protecting my mental health is learning when to say yes and when to say no and practicing that.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a huge aspect of the whole thing, right? Like once you value yourself enough to give yourself that sleep, give yourself that rest, not attending that event, then you start to feel better about yourself. And then you start to not need to go to every event because you don't need it to feel better about yourself. You don't need the validation of others. And then out of that blossoms your creativity, and your mental health is just the light starts to shine, and you start to have ideas and want to do things that you hadn't done in a long time. Like if you do the things that are good for you, that you know are good for you, then you're going to feel better. And then when you feel better, you're going to have the better life that you've always wanted. But we do the things we don't want to do to please other people, and then we wonder why we don't have the life we want.
Oof. It's so true and such a painful call out.
Yeah, it's tough. It takes a lot of years to learn doing it the wrong way, though, unless you're taught. I mean, I don't know. I think you did a pretty good job of it, but
For the most part, but also incredibly imperfect at the same time.
yeah, no one is.
Yeah. Anything else you would add to ways to protect your mental health?
Listen to your feelings. Listen to your intuition. I
Mm.
mean, that's another the aspect of it is just giving yourself the time to journal or listen inward and really find out what is those things that are good for you. Pay attention to how you feel after you go out and binge drink for a night or have a one night stand, and then pay attention to how you feel after you rest and read or hit that goal that you've wanted to hit for a long time. Do that workout class or sign up for that activity, that meet people that you haven't, get out of your comfort zone. Pay attention how you feel after those events, and then reinforce those good feelings.
Love that.
Yeah. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.